Hello, friends. Welcome to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Julie Jancius. If you love this podcast, please be our angel. Ask a friend to listen, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, leave a positive review, and share a screenshot of this podcast on your Facebook or Instagram stories. So, my dad passed away in 2015. We weren't talking, and it took a month for his family to track me down. Before I ever knew he was gone, I started hearing from him in heaven. It consumed me. How is communication with the other side even possible? I left my corporate gig, studied with spiritual teachers on every coast, and worked with my angels to figure out the answers. Today, my mission is teaching you how to raise your vibration, shift your thoughts, trust your intuition, develop your unique spiritual gifts, and connect with your loved ones and angels on the other side. Friends, when you have these tools, life really does become heaven on earth. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius. And friends, you're in for a treat today. We have the author of Inner Entrepreneur, A Proven Path to Profit and Peace. Cannot wait for this, Grant. Grant Sabatier, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I have been taking a deep dive, everything happening in the world, just kind of looking at, our generation has seen the rise of the internet. We know what it was like beforehand. We know how the internet just completely changed things. And I don't really think that people are prepared for the AI revolution, kind of like the industrial revolution of like what's to come and just how much that is going to change our lives completely. And I kid you not, I probably ordered over 58 books. I went through my Amazon account and counted it just about this topic over the last year because I really want to understand it. But everything that I'm seeing is saying that as we kind of come into this AI revolution, a lot of what's going to be happening is people have their own niche, their own expertise, and they're going to be starting different businesses about what they're passionate about their heart feels called, which to me says that we're going to be more on our soul's path than ever before. I just kind of want to get your take on this. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely love that. I think, we live in such a remarkable time in history, but at these remarkable moments, there's people who are able to really thrive, and it really benefits people who are creative and entrepreneurial and self-starters just because the barrier to entry to create anything is so low. But on the flip side, it also makes it more competitive. So, when I started my first podcast back in 2016, no one was podcasting. And so it was just like a blue ocean, and it was so easy to get attention. Now, very, very competitive, very difficult, a lot more difficult to get an audience, make money, build a platform. But with AI, the barrier's even lower. I mean, you can automate so many different things that it used to take just many, many people to create. And so for the self-starter, the person who's willing to learn these tools, it's just truly a massive revolution. The challenge is that it's very, very difficult to distinguish yourself. And I really think the only way to distinguish yourself and to connect with others is, like you're talking about, at the soul level. And so amidst AI and even, AI becoming very, very intelligent, I think that people will always be able to sense someone else's essence. And I think that'll it's impossible to manipulate. And I think people can be fooled for a little while, but true connection, sort of sitting in the same energy with someone else, feeling someone else, that's happening, at a vibrational level. It's happening at a deeper level than kind of just people just chatting and talking. And so I think for the people who are truly themselves, it's a remarkable time, because when you do share who you truly are and you don't put up a facade, people will at least be able to react and hopefully connect with the real you. And so the people that do that well, and I think it's, unfortunately now, when I started creating content, there was very few people talking about money in a vulnerable way. So I was very early on that. I just shared every way that I was making money, very transparent about my net worth, all those pieces, and people really connected with that. So if you take the time to figure out what you want to do and have something distinctive to say and can really connect with people, it's never been easier to do that.
For sure. And I think it's never going to be easier, in the future. This is what they're looking for. We weren't raised in our generation to be leaders, right? You go through the school system. That school system really taught us how to follow very well, teach to the tests, the standardized tests. And, in the past generations, I look at my grandparents' generation, they didn't really have a problem stepping into leadership roles. I don't know if they were products of the Great Depression. They were seeing world wars as they were growing up. But when they saw a hole, they stepped up and they filled it and they stepped into those positions. Were we not raised to be leaders? Because I'm seeing right now a lot of people in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s who are really feeling this soul calling to step into something else. But that takes a lot of courage to, okay, I've done this my entire life. I'm stepping into a second career, or I'm starting another path for myself. It takes a lot of courage. What is it? Is it the courage that we need? Is it the leadership skills? Is it both?
Yeah, in my book, I talk a little bit about how I think most people are stuck between an irrational level of fear and an illusion of control. And I think that so many people think that choices they make in their life are a lot riskier than they actually are. And so they just don't make choices at all, right? We were disciplined when we were creative and curious, right? We're trained and we all go to school and sit in those desks and follow lesson plans. And we're basically all taught to be middle managers at companies. I mean, that's what makes capitalism work. But when you start stepping outside of that and having a little bit of success, then, in the book, I talk a lot about this. How do you experiment being an entrepreneur? How do you figure out what you want to do? How do you test it out to see how it makes you feel? What's possible? Getting comfortable with it? Because those first couple of steps, as you start figuring out what entrepreneurship means, as you start figuring out your soul level purpose, not only is it, like a fun thing to do, but it teaches you a lot about yourself. Because a lot of this is really just about growth and about expansion and realizing that all that life is about is defining success for yourself. And success, the marker of success is, are you happy or not? And so there's people, that's irrespective of how much money you have or in a lot of cases what you're doing. The truly brilliant people in life are the ones who are happy with the lives that they're living. And if you're not happy with the lives that you're living, then there are other paths to find that. And if you feel stuck, it's because you are. And a lot of people have these feelings. And I talk in the book a lot about, in the West, we're really driven just by our minds, right? It's like we just think ourselves in circles, basically. And it's not your mind that's going to get you out of this trap, right? It's your intuition, it's your heart. And so the things that you feel have meaning, and the more that you pay attention to that. So the more that you pay attention and move towards that, the more you'll expand your life and the more success that you'll find. Because I really do believe that when you do align with your soul level purpose and you follow the things that you love, you get rewarded for it. The universe wants you to do that. And so it's like, it's kind of like riding a wave. Like the most successful entrepreneurs I know, the happiest ones, their businesses, they're challenging, they're difficult in some ways, but they're effortless at the same time, and when we all kind of get in that flow state in different areas of our life, but you can really do it, in how you build your business and how you build your career, but we're just not conditioned to think that way. No one talks about it that way. And unfortunately, a lot of the teachers that we learn from, even though they're great, these are people who, in a lot of cases, wanted to do something else and just had to default to teaching. They're people who are really subject matter experts, but they're not life experts, And so we spend our life learning from people that we don't really want our lives to look like. And then that's who, we end up trying to follow. And so the great thing about the world that we're living in today is that there's so many blueprints and, podcasts and books. You can check these things out for free or at the library for free. And you can just learn from other people who are doing something different. And that's the great thing today, because a lot of the mystery behind how is someone living that life is has dissipated, right? It's pretty easy to learn if you're curious.
Yeah. I think it was really interesting what you said. So I just want to repeat it. I think people need to write this down on a Post-it and stick it where you can see it every day. If you're feeling stuck, it's because you are. And so many people feel that. And when you pray or you ask God, universe, source, or your angels or your intuition, what's my next step? What should I be doing? What's my soul called for? I think people hear something, and I know for me as an entrepreneur, often it's really small, right? Like I see a bigger vision of where I'm going, but the first step that I need to take to get there is very, very small. And I see two things happen. People think the step is too small, so they don't take it at all. And sometimes people delay starting something that's calling to their heart for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I find that when they go back and pray, God, universe, source, what should I be doing with my life? They really hear that thing that they heard 20 years ago. And so I like to tell people, if your life is the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z, you can't just skip letters. Like your life is unfolding, your consciousness is expanding. And so when you come back to it, you're going to start at some place, work on that thing. But what I see entrepreneurs doing is running with life. So they've learned the key is that if they just go do that next thing that they feel called to do, it opens them up to the next piece, which open them up to the next piece. And life becomes really, really fun when you're following your heart.
Your intuition grows as you spend more time with it and pay more attention to it. I think there's also this piece of just having enough space and time in your life to listen. And, when we're stressed about money or our family or our careers, I always say it's like 90%, 95% of our brain is occupied by these things. And so when you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's very difficult to think about anything but that, right? And so a lot of people just spend their life kind of chasing the next dollar just because they have to, right? So one of the first steps you can take is just saving 6 to 12 months of expenses, and that's going to give you a little bit of breathing room in your life. And it's great from a financial perspective, but from a life quality standpoint, when you're not worrying and waking up stressed about money, there's more space for other things to show up. And so I always talk about, and it's even when you go further and you start making your own money and you're not beholden to a boss or getting laid off from Amazon or the government or whatever, you're just like stressed that you're going to do something or upset someone, or not even upset someone. You're just going to wake up and be redundant. And that's the scary thing about AI, because it is going to replace jobs. And so you're either learning it, figuring out how you're going to use it, or it's going to take your job. And so that's, there's sort of optimism hidden within the doom. But when you're making money on your own and on your own terms, that And you build some sustainability into your business. And so in the book, I talk about these different levels of entrepreneurship. And once you get to solopreneurship, it's really all about building sustainability and trying to minimize the risk. And so how do you build sustainable income streams? How do you minimize the complexity in your business so that you can reclaim a little bit more breathing room in your life? Because as you reclaim more space, like now, I make money 5 or 6 different ways, from investments. I've got a bookstore, I've got a holding company, I've got book royalty income from my Penguin Random House. I've got rental income. I've got money coming in that I really don't even pay attention to until I do my taxes. It frees up the space in my life to, I just got back from 2 weeks in Bali. I was at a meditation retreat. I'm going to Paris and in the south of France in a couple of weeks. I'm able to go to these places and move through life in a way that money itself just, it's important. The energy is important. I need to pay attention to it a little bit, but it frees up 90% of my brain to grow and expand as a human. And so you can start claiming that over time. And when you do that, when you do create that time and space in your life, things start showing up. And so the best thing that I tell people, just like the sort of, if you feel stuck, then you have to have some space in your life. You have to have some meditation practice, some way to just get out of the house and get your own time, maybe take a trip, get away for a day. The best thing that you can do is get out of your day-to-day routine, because when you're locked in that routine, our brains are like little computers, right? It's when we see the same thing every day, we're literally asleep in our lives because our brain's built around efficiency. And that's why, time moves so fast when you're just in your day-to-day routine. But when you go on vacation, it feels like time lasts forever, because time literally does expand. It's something that expands and contracts based on your openness and presence to it. So when you're on vacation, there's more new things, you're paying attention, you're more aware. It's forced presence in a lot of ways. And so you can create that in your day-to-day life by just mixing up your routine, going to new places, exposing yourself to new people. And just once you do that, then it's like, if you don't know what you want to do with your life or what you want to create or what business, that's normal. Everyone's there. Everyone's afraid of starting something new, even successful entrepreneurs. But if you create enough space in your life and just give it time, and that's what people don't have. They don't have that. They don't have that patience. And there's a difference between patience and complacency. You know, you do want to set a limit on this, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to think about this for the rest of my life. It's like, no, I'm going to give myself some breathing room for the next 3 months. I'm not going to put any pressure on myself, but I'm really going to think hard about how I can quit my job and start something new, or how I can start something new on the side. And you give yourself that 90-day buffer, and then you check in with yourself at the end of that 90 days and say, okay, was that enough time? Did I learn something? Have I made any choices? We're really bad as humans at predicting the future, planning for the future, terrible at it. Terrible. So if you can break down the future into more digestible chunks, as you're talking about smaller decision-making points, but even just things, what am I going to do the next 90 days? And how do I feel? And then paying attention to that. And I think the last thing I'll say is a lot of people's pain and struggle in life is simply the fact that they're holding on to who they were and not letting themselves become who they can become. And our identity is our blanket, right? And someone like James Clear says, you know, habits are our identity, or our routines are our identity, and all these things. It's like, none of that is your identity. Identity is just a facade. It's just something that we hold on to and wrap ourselves in to protect ourselves from being afraid of dying. I mean, it's just like we're holding on to our minds when we should be opening our heart. And all the good stuff is not there. It's not at the level of your identity, because the only thing that's changing in life is who you are. And so when you learn to pay attention to that and you get in touch with that, then the answers start to open up to you. It becomes a lot clearer what you need to do. And most people, they're holding on to something for way, way too long. So you have a career, a job title, you know, certain things in your life, and you're just always trying to map back and find purpose in who you think you are. But a lot of people, they've already changed, or they've lost who they are. And then they wake up 20, 30 years, as you're talking about, and they look in the mirror and like, gosh, you know what happened to my life? There's all these things I wanted to do, and I haven't done them. And so when you let go of your identity and you're like, okay, I'm always changing. What I like now, I might not like in the future. How can I best set myself up to become the me that I've yet to become, and not limit myself and not get stuck in a place that I won't be able to become the fullest expression of a human that I can be.
Yeah. Two things come to mind. I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I really feel like with the AI, this is going to be the rise of like the small business, or I don't know exactly what solopreneur means, but it almost feels like people who don't have something of their own to make money on from themselves, just starting something, are almost going to be left behind. And then you see people who are starting things, who do have a business of their own. And what I see is a lot of times, to your point of what you were just saying, they keep trying to perfect and perfect and perfect what they've got, when in reality, what Spirit is calling them to do is to evolve into the next step of their own entrepreneurship and to create something else. So I think in the past, where life was about maybe perfecting a business, we've stepped out of that into a place where entrepreneurs can get one thing up and running, and then the next year create an entirely new revenue stream, or like a new business, and really think about creating like a new revenue stream almost every year, right?
Yeah. It's a different mindset. It really is. And it's scary at first. And for someone who's not an entrepreneur or hasn't been one, it sounds crazy. And that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, because Inner Entrepreneur, it's basically the idea that you're an entrepreneur even if you don't think that you are. It's just important to figure out what kind of entrepreneur you are and what it means to you. Because that's the great thing. Entrepreneur used to mean something 10 years ago, and now it means whatever you want it to.
Well, it's almost like you're as a soul, you're here to serve and to help humanity just through who you uniquely are. And I think that that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's the X factor. So I talk about, you know, I've made a lot of money in my life, sold companies, bought companies, had a lot of success, a lot more success than I ever thought I would. And for me, the magnifier of joy is in helping others. So once I made money, I had a marketing agency and worked with business schools and, made a bunch of money, saved a bunch of money, but I didn't like the work at all. It was just, energy crushing. Just I was tired all the time, traveling all the roads. So there's a very different. There's a big difference between kind of a energy draining business and an energy creating business. And when you have something that you truly love and that's helping others, that's the X factor. You realize it's like, not only does the universe reward you when you're doing what you love, but it double rewards you when what you love is helping others. There's something about deep in human nature, I think it's embedded in consciousness, that the people who support others and help humans flourish, it's like a survival mechanism, get rewarded. It's the same thing like having a child. There's massive biological benefits to having a kid. It's very hard. It's difficult. It takes so much time, so much energy, but our species wants us to create new members of our species. And so you get, for all the pain and all the struggle and all the challenge, you get massive amounts of even just basic biological rewards. You're able to unlock a level of life that's different than if you hadn't had kids. I'm not saying you should have kids or not, but it's the same thing with helping others, where you do get rewarded. And so for me, that was the big factor, was like, once I stopped serving myself and started serving others and helping, and now I'm fully in the mission driven phase of my life. I write these books. I speak to college students. I have the Bookstore. Bookstores are terrible businesses, but I wanted my community to have one, and I'm all about how can I give as much as possible to others. And my cup is already overflowing with love. Like everything that I've put out into the world, I've gotten back 100-fold. So I don't need any more love from the world. I just feel like life's so hard and so challenging, and most people were sold this bill of goods or weren't taught how to think for themselves, that I just feel some level of responsibility to share what I've figured out, expecting nothing, right? And that there's an element there too. I think when you don't have expectations for what you're creating and you just do it very purely, then
it's complete surrender. Beautiful souls, this has been one of the hardest years, and we're still kind of in the thick of it. And I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you so incredibly much to everyone who financially supports my work. Truly, I could not do this work without you, and I am so beyond grateful. For those of you who do want to support my work, I do have a new Sacred Women's Circles. They're all beginning, all of the circles, August 1st. You can now sign up on my website, theangelmedium.com, then go to the Women's Circles tab. Also, friends, I just read a report, and this isn't to scare you. The angels want to prepare you. This report has talked about how over the next decade, 33% of all jobs in the U.S. could be eliminated, and 47% total could be disrupted due to new AI technology. Again, this isn't to scare you, but your angels want you to be prepared. Friends, I would love to teach you the skills of being an angel messenger, energy healer, and medium, all in one at my Angel Reiki School. If you've been feeling called to serve humanity or start your own healing business, please do not wait. This is your sign. Your angels are trying to work with you on a whole new level. Friends, a whole new Angel Reiki School begins online August 1st. And when you sign up this month for the online program, I'm gifting you free tuition to also attend in person at any of the 3 to 4 in-person Angel Reiki schools that we're going to have over the next 12 months. They're always held in the Chicago suburbs because it takes a few carloads to get all of the materials, massage tables that we use over there. Friends, the Angel Reiki School certifies you in all 3 modalities at once, giving you a really unique edge. Also, friends, one more thing. If you love this podcast and want to support me, we're starting a whole new course August 1st in the Angel membership. It's called Release Fear and Step into Your Power. power. You can sign up for the Sacred Women's Circles, Angel Reiki School, and the membership all on my website, theangelmedium.com. If you want more info, use the contact form over at theangelmedium.com to submit your question. I read all of them. And from the bottom of my heart, friends, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for supporting my work. I truly couldn't keep all of this going without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now back to the show. When it comes to the business, I know what it's like to run a service-oriented business. What is it like to run businesses like the bookstore? You had mentioned before that bookstores aren't always profitable. I totally get that. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, so I moved to Columbus, Ohio from New York City. My wife's a professor at Ohio State. Live in a really cute little area of town called Clintonville. It's kind of like the Brooklyn of Columbus. A lot of, right next door to my bookstore, there's a cobblery, like the hippest Danish couple ever make these shoes, and it's like the cutest thing on earth. And there's like the little donut shop, and there's the vintage clothing stores, and there's the florist, and there, it's like that. It's cool. It's like Etsy came to life in a lot of ways. It's like really funny.
I love it.
It's cute. It's really cute. And I was like, gosh, like our neighborhood really needs a bookstore. And I love books. I've been collecting 20 years. I'm a writer. I really want our community to have a bookstore, but I was like, bookstores are terrible businesses. No one's just going to be able to start this up. I have some money. I'm just going to put some of the royalty money from my book aside and try to open this bookstore. And so it took me about 1,400 hours to open it. The happiest I was with the bookstore was just being alone, building it out and buying books and shelving them and realizing that, I really love books. But there's an energy in anything that you create, right? Whether it's writing a book but building a space is different. It's like your energy is embedded in it. You're making all these design choices. And for me, the bookstore is cool because I just believe that people encounter things when they need them, and they get books. They find the book they need when they need it. And so I just felt called to facilitate the space where, I'm buying a lot of new books, but we have a lot of used, a lot of antiquarian books. There's just tons of stuff flowing through there. And people just find things that they never knew existed and that, will help them on their journey. And so I just felt inspired to do that. I have 3 full-time employees. They have health insurance. Because I have 3 full-time employees and health insurance, I don't make any money. I'm breaking even. But, we've only been in business 6 months. We've sold about 35,000 books. The community loves it. Everyone's happy. My daughter loves hanging out there. I like hanging out there. I get exposed to so many amazing books, and I bring all the best ones home. And so it's it's back to the soul level fulfilling. It's like, oh, this none of this is about the money. This is about just spending my time in a way that's fun and doing one of those things that I've always wanted to do. But I'm the kind of person. It's like, a lot of people talk about wanting to open a bookstore, and I actually, I'm the kind of person who, if I want to do something, I'll do it. And so now I'm never going to have the regret of, hey, I didn't try that bookstore. There's a lot to learn. It's kind of a never-ending journey, but the rare books are really fun. So I've got a lot of really cool books that, are signed by famous people, owned by famous people. I'm getting a lot more of those books, and those books themselves have energy. That's the really cool thing. Like if I have, all of Jack Kerouac's books that he owned on Buddhism. And so that's one of the things where, he writes notes in the margins. He's like very devout Catholic and Buddhist, follower, very spiritual band. And it's really cool. It's like you can feel the energy when you're sitting with these books. The essence is embedded within them. So that's really cool. And it's also fun, I think, in life to try something if you have the time and the resources. I'm kind of in this next phase of life where it's like, I want to do something I've never done before. Just to learn it, to try it. And because other people they might not be able to. So launching the business, it was so hard, took more money than I thought it would. And it's really unfortunate because I wish a lot more people could have bookstores. They're more deserving than me. And so I was just like, gosh, I might as well be the millionaire who moves into the neighborhood, who has a lot of free time, who launches the bookstore that doesn't need to make money and that everyone can get benefit from, because, I don't know who else it would be, because it's just so difficult. And I think that when you fast forward post AI, I do think the bookstore will make money at some point, because I'm starting to see people getting tired of the internet. I think people are really, really fatigued with Google. I'm very optimistic because, the 20-year-olds that come in and collect buy everything from like Jane Fonda's workout book from 1980 to like, 100-year-old Charles Dickens book. And, these are like 18 to 20-year-old kids and they're into the analog. It's like records are still big, but now people are buying VHSs and cassettes and books. And so I'm the book's been around for over 5,000 years. I think it's going to be all right.
You touched on something which I don't think that many people understand until they become an entrepreneur themselves, which is that sometimes I believe that the universe blesses us with a successful project, a successful business, in order to get those funds to start the divine next thing. And it's not always about building this massive wealth pocket that's never touched and it's passed down. But I think every single entrepreneur that I know has taken the success that they've had and translated it either into nonprofit work or to another business that is helping and serving in some capacity, like your bookstore. How can people kind of release the self-limiting beliefs that they have? I find that people are their own biggest blockage. And so if you feel like this anti-ness towards wealthy people, you're really telling the universe and putting it out into the universe that you don't really want that to come in, when that really isn't the case for most people. They just don't have a correct idea of what the life actually looks like.
Money is just energy, just like anything else. We're taught that it's something that it really isn't. And I think that, I talk about this in the book too, money masking. I think people just chase money because it's what everyone else does and they don't really have a purpose for it or a reason for it. And then I think there's other people, like you're saying, they just think it's evil or bad. And it's often people who think it's evil or bad, it's because, they grew up thinking that way, or they just have someone who's wealthy around them that they despise, or just, or it's just like, or they haven't gotten a fair shake. So when you start surrendering, I think is the word you used, to something larger and do it purely, right? I think people that do things with nefarious reasons, or for vile reasons, I think whether it's, you say, karma or just sort of, bad vibes, like things don't tend to work out for them. Right. So you have to do this purely. And I can feel your energy is very pure and that you're doing this from a very, deep place. And I think that when people do that, they get rewarded, and then things just expand for them, right? And it might not be the best business, or it might not be the right thing forever, but nothing's forever anyway. And I try to think in these 5-year blocks where it's like, I'm going to try this for the next 5 years at the bookstore. I don't have to do this forever, right? I'm going to try this for 5 years. I'm going to give my all to it. I'm going to give back. If it's super exhausting and I don't get a lot of fulfillment from it, and it's just taking away from other areas of my life, then I'll stop doing it. But, it's worth trying. And then the money itself is just, it's like that great Kanye West lyric where it's like, having money's not everything, not having it is. It's like when you don't have it, it's like what you think about. When you do have it, it's just an energy that you use. But you do have to spend time to build a relationship with it. And I do think that making money on your own changes how you think about money, because you're like, wow, I earned this on my own. And that sort of limiting mindset belief, this is the great thing. When you have a steady job and a paycheck, and you advocate for 3% raises, and how much money you're making is largely driven by someone else, right? And you might do a great job and your boss might not care, or your shareholders might not care, because every company is pretty much a legal pyramid scheme, right? It's like the people at the top want to make the money. It's like capitalism is built on exploitation. So when you're just working in the grind, you're going to feel that, right? You're going to get exploited in some way, and you're never going to feel fully valued. But when you make money on your own terms, then it's like, maybe I can always do this, or maybe I can make more than I thought, or maybe I have more power here, or maybe it's very empowering, right? It's like, why do you want your life to be driven by someone else? Or why do you want 80% of your waking hours to be dictated by a job that you have to go to and have to show up somewhere, and then just not have an option or not have a choice? And so Yeah, super empowering. It's like when you're a kid and you have a lemonade stand, you make like, $5 and you're like, wow, I did that on my own. A lot of people kind of lose that, but that's really what it's about. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, very, very empowering and just a remarkable time, right? Because 50 years ago, 20 years ago, none of this would have been possible. It's just, everything is just getting more and more accessible. And then there's more and more niche audiences. I mean, it's just, you can reach people who are into what you're into and then find ways to monetize it in ways that didn't exist before. I mean, it used to all be about, even let's say online content creators, just, the Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian. It was like the massive influencer. And like, yeah, they sell their makeup companies for billions of dollars and they're going to get that. But now companies really want to tap into the micro influencer, right? They want to get those niche audiences. They want to form meaningful partnerships, and trust is a lot easier to build, with a smaller audience. And there's a lot of ways that you can serve your audience and monetize without exploiting them. And they'll understand if you're open and honest, and they'll value that you're trying to make money, and they'll buy your courses and they'll buy your books and they'll show up at your retreats and they'll, buy your products or click on your affiliate links when they trust you. And that trust, has to come from an authentic place. And so that's cool because, you can reach people that you never would have been able to reach with your message, and it's worth trying.
When it comes to this, I remember the first time that I set up my own thing. I set up a nonprofit after my daughter was born because she almost passed away twice in her first year from the syndrome that she was born with. And I knew that if other parents had the information that I had learned going through this experience, that other kids wouldn't pass away. So I started a foundation for kids going through that. I remember when my husband, because I did it all for a couple of years, just not getting paid a single dime, just starting it from a place of like, this information just needs to be out in the world for these kiddos and parents. My husband came to me and he's like, you have to go back to work because like, we can't make this work anymore. So I handed it over to a board and I felt this deep sadness. Like I had this idea in my head that God, universe, source just has like one purpose for you, right? And when that purpose is over, then it's done. And I remember thinking, okay, well, is God going to take my life now? Because I know I was supposed to start this foundation, like that was my purpose. And I ended up going to an angel reader myself before I even got into this work. And she goes, oh, no. That's a misconception within your mind. You think that you only have one purpose, but really you have purpose after purpose after purpose, like we've been talking about. Have you seen that in other people where we think that we've just got one thing and that when we do that one thing, like we're done? Is that common?
Destiny is what you create and what you align with. It doesn't already exist. I think we have moments in our life, like I talked about, where you have opportunities to wake up. And you're given ways to see the world. It's like when you're a kid, you're very pure. You see the world very purely, right? You're not like, you don't have any of these illusions, right? It's like life is just play. And I think as people get older, they get hardened, and it's just more difficult to play and more difficult to see those things. But, it's kind of like as we get older, then it becomes, it can become a little easier to play once you realize that there's so much yet so little at stake in life. And oftentimes it's like, like you're talking about, your daughter having an illness or, a parent dying or us, confronting our own mortality. It's often those moments when we realize how beautiful life is and what a gift we have here. And that the things that we worry about or that we worry will happen are really quite small. And we don't have to diminish them, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, that we're here, our purpose is to discover who we are and to enjoy our lives. That's our purpose in life.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're here for. And you need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And that can mean whatever you want it to. Just do that and just enjoy it. And I think people, they don't feel like they have the permission to do that.
Yes.
No one's told them that. They've been told to stay in line. They've been told to mind them, to do everything for themselves, right? Especially in the U.S., it's like self-reliance run amok. It's like you have to do everything in the world yourself. And it's like, no, when you look back in history, people were supported by their family and friends and community, right? It's like you didn't have to shoulder the burden of existence on your own. And I think that because we move away from our families, because, everyone is just stuck on their phones in a lot of ways, we've lost a lot of that intimacy, that connection, that sharing. And so, going full circle here, I think community is currency. I think that the people who are able to best recognize what it means to be human and then live that way, live with their true nature, happiness comes. It's a default. It's something that happens to you. I in the book, I talk about how peace, you find peace when you're in alignment with what you love. It just shows up. It's not fleeting. It just shows up. It's just, you're surrounded by people that you love. And I think this is the other thing is people, I've had the opportunity to speak to so many thousands of people and talk to them and coach people. And, so many people, they're so much closer to a life that they love than they realize. Yeah. Right? It's just, we're born thinking there's this lack, right? Or that happiness is somewhere outside, or that someone else in our life is going to make us happy, right? But a lot of people, they have family they love and friends they love, and maybe their job's a little stressful, but they get to hang out with their friends on the weekend. And I think it's people are like a couple of steps away from that perfect thing. And in a lot of cases, people already have what they seek. They just don't see it clearly, right? They're looking out there. It's just like, I'll be happy one day, or one day it will all make sense, or maybe I'll arrive. There's somewhere I need to get, or some level of money. And I think true peace, true enlightenment is about seeing what's really there.
Yeah.
Right? It's about recognizing that this is all heaven.
Yeah.
It's not some place. It's this. And that's hard to do. I'm saying this like like it's easy to do. Very, very difficult to do when, you're on the 9-to-5 grind. And, I spend all of my time sort of opening to the world and thinking about this, right? And it's a struggle for me at times, but it's very hard in our society to truly find peace. But there's a path there, and the path is much easier if you get out of your own way and you save some money, create your own income streams, buy back some of your time, create more space in your life. Then it starts to blossom. The colors start to become a bit more vibrant, and things become a little clearer, and things start to make sense. And that's what my heart is very, very broken for people who they have everything. They just can't see it yet, Yeah. And that's my hope is that they do. So, this is your life. I mean, this is it. Like, this is it. There's no other chance. And so what are you waiting for? Like, what else are you waiting for?
As we are coming into this new age, the other thing that I'm seeing is and it kind of freaks me out because I'm just not used to it. I don't know much about it. And maybe you can kind of help point all of us in the right direction, because I'm just not educated. And as soon as we become educated and understand it, it becomes easier. Are we headed more towards a digital currency? And if so, can you explain to people like what that means and where we can get educated on that? Is it safe just yet to invest in that? Is it going to become safer? And what does that mean too?
Our government, and this is one of the things that they're being smart about, right? They're creating a digital currency reserve. And as soon as that started happening at the government level, the reason they're doing that is not so they can, hoard all of the cryptocurrency. It's so what they've done is they've taken something that's fundamentally decentralized and they've centralized it. So cryptocurrency, the promise of cryptocurrency really no longer exists because the U.S. government can dictate how we use money. Right?
What does this all mean?
They can make it illegal for us to possess cryptocurrency. They could tax it at extremely high rates. And, at the end of the day, we all have to file taxes. We have to, declare our cryptocurrency assets. And so unless you're really, really living off the grid and living outside of society, then you can maybe use crypto, to live that way. But the government employs people who can track where the funds go. They're tracking, they find out who has these wallets, who owns it. So the promise that everything is going digital, I don't think will ever happen. The U.S. government won't let that happen, because then the government loses power, and the U.S. government's too powerful. With that being said, there's a limited amount of Bitcoin out there, and it's all going to be mined, fairly shortly. So I don't think everything will turn to digital currencies. What I do think will become useful is just like having a store of gold, like people who buy gold. Cryptocurrency is like that. It's just an alternative asset that you can own that might appreciate, and that you should maybe have 1% to 3% of your net worth in. I mean, it's
like diversifying your income.
Exactly. Just diversifying your investments, right? It's just something that's like, oh, it'd be nice to have this. I do think people have gotten lucky and bought, crypto when it was down. But I mean, that's highly speculative. It's just like people gambled and they won, and congratulations. That's great. But will that continue? Why speculate, with your, entire financial future? I mean, people are always going to bet it all on a horse, or in Vegas. And so, they're going to be able to do that. So I wouldn't worry about cryptocurrency. I don't think there's anything anyone is going to miss out on. You're not going to all of a sudden everyone's using Bitcoin and you don't have any. That's not going to be the way it works. Yeah. Just the people who have it might be really, really rich, just as they are, right? It's why 19-year-olds buy $20 million houses, and, those things will happen just like they always have, though. People have always been really speculative. It's just, do you want to put all of your hard-earned money on that and risk your future freedom on something? And I just view it as a hedge.
Sure. Yeah.
And diversifying, but the tried and true investment paths of, total stock market index fund and real estate investing, and just having a diversified portfolio and trying to focus on your income and maximizing the percentage of your income that you're saving, all those tried and true principles, work. I do think that most people should be saving a much higher percentage of their income just to buy more of their future freedom. And, I've written a lot about that.
Amazing. And agreed on that last point. Your book, The Inner Entrepreneur, A Proven Path to Profit and Peace. Grant, tell everybody where they can find that and where they can find you and your podcast. Yeah.
So at Grant Sabatier on Instagram, I've written 2 books. The first one's called Financial Freedom. It's in 21 languages. It's kind of the primer. It's like the financial independence piece. So it's the personal finance book that I wrote. And then the entrepreneurship book, Inner Entrepreneur. You don't have to have read the first book. It functions independently, but it's very, it builds on the first one. So, it's kind of a way to think about the world. And I'm currently writing a book on meditation that should come out in 2 years with Penguin. So that's the third book. And then I don't know if I'm going to write any other books. I think that's hey, here's how I think you should live trilogy. And come, if you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, come to Clintonville Books, come say hi. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Grant, come back when your meditation book comes out. We'd love to have you back.
Thanks, Julie. Nice meeting you.
Of course. You too. Beautiful souls, we have so many freebies to help serve you, your family, and friends. Want a weekly message from your angels emailed to you? Sign up on my website to receive a weekly message of love, hope, and healing from the angels. Do you have a prayer request? Go to the homepage of my website and submit your prayer request so that our team of prayer warriors can be praying for you daily. Want to learn more about the angels and energy healing? Subscribe to my YouTube channel called Julie Jancius to learn more about the angels, energy healing techniques, and so much more. One of the biggest things we hear from our listeners is that they have no one to talk to about their spiritual awakening. We created a private Facebook group called the Angels and Awakening Podcast Tribe so that you could connect with others like you and know that you're not alone. So be sure to join this group on Facebook to get the support you need. Want a free session? We plan to give away over 240 free sessions with students in the Angel School per year. To win a free session, subscribe and rate this podcast 5 stars. Then write a positive review and email us a screenshot. That way we know who to contact when you win. Want to share your uplifting angel story on the podcast? Because we love sharing them. Please write down your angel story and email it to us. Don't forget, be an angel and share this podcast with someone who needs it. See you back here next time for another episode of the Angels and Awakening podcast. Friends, before we go, I want you to take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. Again, deep breath, inhaling the pure white light and love of God, making you feel weightless and filled with joy. And I want you to exhale all of the heaviness that you've been carrying in your auric field, in your chakras, in your body. Friends, no matter where you are in your life, your angels need you to know that you are so loved. Never doubt that you have big purpose here and now. What is your soul here to do? My friends, your spirit team is always working with you. I want you to see and feel your heart chakra and your heart itself opening like French doors. I want you to see God and your spirit team sending you a multitude of blessings of abundance in health, wealth, happiness, love, and peace. See all of those unexpected blessings filling your heart right now. My friends, your soul is love, joy, peace, bliss, ease, and grace. And because that's who and what you truly are, these elements can never leave you. They can never be taken away from you. And my friends, all you really ever have to do is just be. Be you and radiate the beautiful light that you are. So go forth today and be an angel in the lives of others. Radiate your love and live in the high vibration of simply being.